This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
Every high-stakes trial begins with a moment that most people overlook. It isn't the opening statements. It isn't the first witness. It's jury selection. And in the Donna Adelson case, we're getting to watch that process unfold a way we usually don't. Cameras are rolling. Raw deer is on full display. And if you're paying attention, it tells you a hell of a lot about what this case has in store. Think about it. Donna Adelson, she's accused of being the matriarch behind the murder for hire plot that left her former son-in-law, Dan Markel, dead in his driveway. 11 years, 4 trials, and multiple convictions. The hitmen, the go-between, even her son Charlie already serving life. It's Donna's turn to sit at the defense table, and before a single piece of evidence is shown, before a single argument is made, it all comes down to the 12 people who will decide her fate. Jury selection in a case like this isn't casual. Prosecutors and defense attorneys aren't just looking for people who say they can be fair. They're looking for subtle tells, body language, past experiences, even offhand answers that hint at bias. Because in a case drenched in media coverage with a family name that's been in headlines for over a decade, finding true impartiality is like panning for gold. And here's a twist. Florida allows us to watch, unlike so many other states that keep jury selection hidden behind courtroom doors. Florida's sunshine laws let the public in. That transparency adds another layer of pressure, not just on the attorneys, but on the potential jurors themselves. Every shrug, every pause, every nervous glance. We see it. In a case where public perception has already been a force of its own. That's huge. So as Donna Adelson's trial begins, the real battlefield isn't just in evidence and testimony. It's right here in the quiet exchanges between lawyers and potential jurors, and the questions designed to smoke out hidden bias, and in the answers that might make or break a defense strategy. Bob Mott, a defense attorney and host of the podcast Defense Diaries, is here with us. He's seen this up close. He knows how much strategy is baked into every question, every strike, every choice. Bob, let's start right there. In your view, why is jury selection the most critical stage of a trial like this?
It's really interesting because a lot of times they don't stream voir dire, and especially in high-profile cases where they're super conscious about not in any way giving any kind of inclination to us, the general public, like who the jurors are, because they're always worried about, jury tampering. So, so for this case, I was really excited to see it, and frankly, it's the most important part of any trial. I mean, picking your jury is everything. It's like, people tend to think, the cross-examinations and the introduction of evidence, that's all obviously very important. But picking those 12 people as far as the attorneys go, that is the most critical portion of the trial. I mean, they are the ones who are making the decision as to innocence or guilt, or not guilty or guilty. So, for us to be able to watch it and kind of see what that process is, I love. And it was kind of like, for years I was telling people, especially when I was just doing my podcast before the YouTube channel, look, the real war, the real battles are fought prior to trial, when you have the motions that are trying to keep evidence in, trying to put evidence in, trying to keep it out, things of that nature, because that ultimately determines what the jurors are going to hear when it goes to trial. And you'll see cases where, critical evidence is kept out, that the jury will never hear about, that we have the opportunity to watch it get litigated, and they never used to stream that. And now it's commonplace. Like we all are streaming all these pretrial hearings, which are fabulous. I mean, they're really fascinating to watch, and it really gives you a much deeper understanding of how this process works, because trial's like the end game. It's like there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on, and it also lets people understand why it takes these cases so long to get to trial sometimes. So to see this kind of part of the process where we typically don't get to see it is so instructive for people that love to watch trials and are true crime fanatics and love to watch these things develop. Like, being able to see how lawyers go about picking these jurors is really a fascinating thing. And this is especially fascinating because, we had Judge Everett, who's a phenomenal judge on this case. He asks a bunch of questions, just kind of like trying to weed out people that may have issues that won't allow them to be able to sit on a 3-week jury. So they're able to thin the herd a bit before they get to when the lawyers ask the questions, which they call voir dire. And, so that happened. And then we've seen Georgia Kappelman, that's who we were watching this morning, who's the prosecutor and attorney and who knows this case forward and backwards. She's prosecuted all of the other cases associated with this case. So, and her questions have been fascinating, and I was streaming with Allie, my partner, and we were talking about the fact that she was really kind of digging into the law and whether or not people had an understanding of the law. And it's a really, really fascinating process to watch. And it really kind of goes to the heart of how hard it is to pick jurors, because you have very limited information about these people. These are going to be the people that are going to be sitting in that box, listening to everything intently for all these weeks, and they're ultimately the decision makers. So you want to have as much knowledge about that person as you can possibly get prior to having them sit on that jury. You want to know if they have biases,
Sure.
Because really both sides want an unbiased juror. You want them coming in just kind of as a unformed piece of clay that is going to just listen to it, and most importantly, follow the law. No matter if they have a bias, are they going to be able to put that aside and follow what the law dictates that they do?
The fact that we're able to see this in this case, and a lot of the cases still don't run this, we're not able to see it. Right. Would you say that having this more out in the open, does that put, not that there's unscrupulous things going on, but more eyeballs on it, the public watching this, more pressure there to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, essentially, so that at the end of the day, it's not something that happened behind closed doors and could be questioned. Obviously, there is a record of these sort of things, but just the fact that you have all these other people watching it, does that change the dynamics at all of a trial and the process of the trial when you have the general public viewing in as well, beyond just the normal folks who would be in the courtroom?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm all for it. I'm big on transparency in courts. The Constitution calls for public trials. And, back when they drafted that thing, that just meant that people could come into the courtroom and watch it, right?
Sure.
Because none of this technology existed. So, the ability for all of us, should we so choose to watch it, is fantastic. However, with that comes some risk, and it's the things that you were talking about. You don't want the public being able to sway jurors, whether they're impaneled or not. Like, if they haven't sequestered jurors, and if you've got a juror that's not following the rules and not accessing their social media, because when you think about it, Tony, how difficult would it be to avoid everything related to that case with respect to our access to phones, if we're on our computer and we get notifications popping up. It's really, really hard in a high profile case, especially if you're geolocated in the area where it's happening, to avoid getting any kind of outside information about that trial that you're sitting as a juror on. So, there's risks involved with it, so you have to kind of balance. Is there ever going to be a point where we make trials where they're not public? The answer to that has to be no, because the reason they're public is for that transparency. We need to know what our government is doing. We need to be able to watch and monitor and hold them accountable for what they're doing. And if you don't have public trials, if they say, okay, well, social media has just gotten out of hand, there's no way that we can keep these people in the dark. We can't sequester them in a hotel for a month and take everything away from them. It's just such a hardship that it's going to shrink the pool of prospective jurors, because people are going to be like, I can't be out of touch from reality for that long. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So, you've got to try to figure out ways to kind of balance it. But, as far as the need for us to be able to keep our eye on what's going on in our courts is just absolute. And we can't, we can never have that go away, because then we become a very, very scary country, because the government at that point can try everything in the dark. And we have no idea what's going on. And no one wants to live in a country like that.
Well, and it's very much up to the judge most of the time as to if these things are going to be held in the dark. I mean, look at Delphi. That one was held in the dark. And then you have other ones that are in full light, like Donna Adelson here. Is this something?
Florida is great about that, though, T.
Yeah.
Like Florida, that's the Sunshine State, has sunshine laws that they're letting everybody see everything, which I'm a fan of.
Do you think we're going to see more of that just with the way the public is demanding it? And I mean, obviously it's good to have sunlight on this and people to be able to see what's going on and more eyes on the ball. So if something does go wrong, people can go, hey, this needs to be looked at here. Are we going to see more transparency, or are we going to see the opposite and more pullbacks from the court systems? Obviously, it's kind of state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction because of that very thing, because they fear too many eyes are on this, and we like running things the way we run things.
Yeah, and I mean, they have that option, like New York State just will not allow cameras in the courtroom. And, obviously there's some pretty big time cases going on, namely, the upcoming Huerman trial. And that's going to be a case that's going to garner a lot of attention, and people are going to want to see what's going on with it. But New York has been steadfast. I mean, Illinois, we're the same way. We really, they're allowed in the courtroom, and judges can't allow for it to happen, but it just doesn't. Yeah. So, I mean, and technically, as long as they're not closing the courtroom, they're abiding by the Constitution, because the public can come. They're just saying, hey, if you want to watch this thing, you got to come down to the courthouse and watch it.
Show up on your horse.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I frankly, I'd love to see everything streamed.
Sure.
I mean, obviously we have the technology for it, and there's cases going on all over the place, because the other part of it is, if mainstream media has not decided to crown a case worthy of our attention, then we're not hearing anything about it.
True.
And there's cases all over this country going on all of the time. And, we're kind of left to the discretion of whoever is streaming the trials, namely Court TV and Law and Crime these days, in terms of what we're seeing, know? So obviously they focus on states that are very free with the streaming and allowing it to happen. So they typically focus on cases. That's why oftentimes we're seeing cases from the same states on Law and Crime and Court TV, because they're knowing that they're not going to have an issue with it.
True.
So that's why we see a lot of, we saw all the Idaho cases, we see the Arizona cases, we see Iowa cases, we see Florida cases a ton. But there's a lot of other states with a lot of stuff going on, and we just have no idea what's happening. So, I mean, it just depends, man. It depends on the states, and I can see a solid argument as to the potential pratfalls with it. What we were talking about before with just social media and YouTube and all that stuff, and how it is impacting trials. I mean, there's no question that it's impacting trials. I mean, we saw it with Reed. We saw it less with Delphi, but I mean, you could argue that was mitigated by the fact that Gull tried the thing in the dark.
And that's where the trial of Donna Adelson is already separating itself from the pack. We often think about dramatic cross-examinations or closing arguments as a turning point, but the truth is, if you lose the jury before you even start, you've lost the trial. What Bob pointed out here is critical. Jury selection isn't about stacking the panel with people who will automatically see things your way. It's about identifying who can actually follow the law, who can push aside bias, and who won't crack under the weight of a high-profile case. In a trial that's drawn national attention, that's no easy task. Transparency makes it even more fascinating. We're not just hearing about voir dire in summaries after the fact. We're watching it unfold, and that puts everyone involved on edge. The attorneys know they're being scrutinized. The potential jurors know their words could be replayed on news clips, and Donna Adelson herself is sitting there watching strangers decide if they're fit to decide her future with her little headphones in her cardigan, looking all matronly. Just this. The kind of access also reminds us why transparency matters. For all the risks of jurors seeing too much media, for all the noise of commentary swirling around, there's something powerful about pulling back the curtain and letting the public witness how justice is formed from the ground up. Because without that sunlight, doubt grows. With it, at least we can see the process, warts and all. So as the trial edges forward, remember this. The stage is already set in ways most people do not realize. The choices made during jury selection will echo through every testimony, every exhibit, and every argument. The defense may have the sharper strategy, or the prosecution may have the cleaner narrative. But if the wrong 12 people are sitting in that box, none of it matters at all. Up next, we're going to talk about why it took more than a decade to bring Donna Adelson to trial, and why prosecutors may still be playing the long game beyond her. Because if this case has shown us anything, it's that every conviction is just one move in a bigger strategy. We're going to dive into that next. Be sure to press subscribe so you don't miss our continued conversation with Bob Motta. Wherever you're downloading podcasts, press subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.